ProWrestlingSheet.com.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Collider Body Slam SmackDown Recap. I know normally it's not me who's hosting it, who's doing these intros. Normally I'm here with John Roca, but John Roca's out of the office today. He's off getting some kind of minor surgery, I believe. He's gonna be okay.
All right.
I don't think it's anything major. But in his absence, I was able to squeeze in an appearance from my Wrestling Sheet Radio co-host Elijah Bates.
Pleasure to be here.
And it's nice because normally on Wrestling Sheet Radio we only talk about the news. We talk about all the popular news stories, the biggest stories of the week, which comes out every Friday. For those of you who maybe don't listen to that, it's myself, Eli, and Jamie Iovine, and we talk about the biggest stories of the week, but we don't often pick apart each part of a show or anything like that, or do recaps. That was a new thing that we added once we came here to Collider, which is something I had wanted to do, but I wanted to do it on video and all that kind of stuff.
I'm looking forward to seing how bad I am at it. So prepare yourselves.
You're gonna be just fine. I'm in a good mood right now because last night I was in the shopping spree mode and I was like trying to buy some new shirts, and I bought that WWE custom tees site.
Yeah.
They got really cool designs on there that are some of the old school designs that they've re-released.
Yeah.
And one of the ones that I got last night was the old school Outsiders shirt.
Okay.
Which I don't really see being sold very often, where it just has the Outsiders on it.
Wait, that's not the one that has the picture of Hall and Nash on it, though?
No, it's the black shirt,
I know which one you're
white
talking
writing
about.
that says the Outsiders, like the OG one with the little NWO logo next to it. So I bought that one, and then I was like, well, Erica, my girlfriend, wants more wrestling shirts, but she likes tank tops, and the tank tops WWE always sold are the ones that she doesn't like.
I wonder, why is that?
Well, well, now they've changed it. They fixed it. The custom tee site sells racerback tees, whatever that. I think that's what most girls wear, apparently, according to my girlfriend. And so I got her an Elias one.
What does racerback mean? Is that like it's got the back cut out, kind of like Hulk Hogan's shirt was?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Oh, cool.
And the more like cutouty as opposed to like straight up, like
the frayed edge cutouty.
I believe so. Yes.
I know we're using all the proper terminology. You're welcome.
Fashionistas over here. Yeah. So I got her one, but then I clicked it, not even like I clicked it, ordered it, and then this morning when I was like awake and it wasn't 12:30 at night when I was just randomly shopping on my phone at 12:30 at night for some reason, I realized I did the wrong size. I just clicked small, not thinking about it, and then I hit her. I was like, well, I need like a medium, and I was like, crap, didn't think about it. So I had to email the custom tees site.
Yeah.
They got back to me just now very quickly. They said, all good, swapped it out, got the new size in. So
not in the doghouse.
Not in the doghouse, exactly.
Welcome.
I thought my present was going to be ruined. I was like, man, I got this cool present, and I fucked it up.
Yeah.
Damn it. Okay, speaking of couples, SmackDown Live.
Yeah.
Kicked off with Miz TV. Kicked off with Miz coming out. Now, before they got into all the Miz TV and the Maurice interview, first, Miz announced that that the winner of his match against Daniel Bryan at Super Showdown gets a WWE title opportunity.
That's a pretty big deal.
A very big deal. Now, I was talking about on Twitter last night, and I had said previously on our SmackDown recap shows that I really hope that Miz is the one to dethrone AJ Styles and then goes on to, hold the title for a little bit, and Daniel Bryan wins the Royal Rumble, and we finally get Daniel Bryan winning a Rumble, and then we also get Daniel Bryan winning the world title again at WrestleMania over The Miz.
You also get Daniel Bryan getting a different kind of momentum that he seems to have right now, too. Like, I mean, I agree with you. I think that actually would be the best possible outcome is Miz winning the match. I don't think that Daniel Bryan has necessarily like the positive heat that he should.
The positive like momentum, you mean?
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. There's something about like whenever you have their significant others involved in everything, where there's a little bit of attention that's taken off, and they're trying to give attention to his wife, and I understand it too. They're trying to make sure that she kind of gets her momentum as well. But in some form or fashion, there's a lot of like Daniel Bryan's return that has kind of felt like this. I don't know. They just haven't really given him necessarily the speed that he needs to like kind of catch back up with that echelon that he had reached before his injury.
See, I feel like with with this Miz feud, he's finally getting back there. I agree with you. Like the everything with with Big Cass, with the Bludgeon Brothers. I just wasn't feeling it. I didn't care about Team Hell No coming back. But once he's gotten back into Miz mode and they're rehashing this long rivalry that they've had and going towards a match that we didn't think was going to happen, even though now we've seen them wrestle against each other, I feel like the fact that Miz keeps getting the upper hand over Daniel Bryan is kind of putting him back in that underdog role a little bit. And I do feel like it is bringing heat to this feud because you're like, man, I really want to see Daniel Bryan get his comeuppance. And if he gets that comeuppance finally and also wins a world title at the same time at Mania, I feel like it'll make it all feel worth it again.
I also feel like, just if they can go in that direction, then there's more biting, like feelings that he can press onto Daniel Bryan too, just to where, him winning the title would be a feel-good moment no matter what. Him winning the title after being antagonized by The Miz, who was the champion at the time, provides a lot more inspirato for people to really want him to win, though, too. As of right now, if he won, it would just be like a momentary placation of what the fans want. But I don't think it would necessarily provide like a long-term, rollout for Daniel Bryan.
Well, when I talked about this on social media, on Twitter, I posed the same kind of thing. Similarly laid this out since I'm not sure everyone that follows me listens to this, so I wanted to kind of get it out. I just wanted to see what people thought about it. And someone who follows me, who I'm a fan of following on Twitter, his name's Ben Axelrod.
Yeah.
He replied to me saying that he likes that, but he also kind of interjected with he thinks I think for the same thing you're feeling, to kind of get some of that momentum back that some people feel like he's missing. He suggested that Daniel, that they separate a little bit. So Miz wins this Super Showdown match, goes on to feud with AJ until he eventually defeats AJ for the title. In the meantime, Daniel Bryan then goes on a streak of like having to find his momentum back, like having to find that inner old school American Dragon in him, and then goes on a streak where we finally get to see him have actual like dope competitive matches with guys like Samoa Joe, guys like Shinsuke Nakamura, stuff like that, where we can see a bunch of those matches until finally it leads to the Royal Rumble where he wins that.
He needs that because the only momentum that he still has right now, and you can kind of feel it in the crowd response to him too. Like the crowd is always happy to chant yes, and throw their arms in the air and everything like that. But he. I don't know, like when he at WrestleMania 30 when he won the title in the main event of WrestleMania, obviously, he had won a lot. There was a lot of build to that and everything right at that point in time, and just
wasn't he actually losing a lot at that time?
It wasn't so much about like the losing though, but it was about like building towards that direction.
Yes,
in a lot of ways, I just feel like because they haven't done anything with him. Even last night, when I was watching, there were parts of me where I was just like, doesn't Daniel Bryan hate The Miz? Like, what? Like, why is he like just coddling Maurice on the ground right now?
So let's get to that part. So then, so after they talked about the WWE title opportunity, Miz acted like he had some big guest that was going to be on the show, which was Maurice, and she comes out and says that this is going to be her last appearance on SmackDown for a while. She's going back home to be a mom. Bummer, but makes sense.
Yeah.
Obviously they've got a kid and stuff. It was nice having her back for a little bit, but like they've said repeatedly on TV, it was only a few months ago, like 5 months ago when they had a kid. So completely makes sense. It's much different than even Daniel Bryan and Brie, because that one's, I think, been almost a year now.
Yeah, it's been
almost. So then Miz calls out Daniel. Daniel comes out. Fight ensues. Maurice gets hit in the ensuing chaos. Daniel acts nervous. He's in there. He's in there like he's got this like look on his face.
Yeah.
Stretcher's brought out. He comes in like he's helping, and they're like, "No, get back."
Like seriously, like get back. Let the professionals do their job.
I mean, if I was in that scenario in real life, I could see I would be a little nervous and go in there and do the same thing.
Yeah, but wouldn't he like be like, Miz, I'm sorry? Like,
yeah, I did.
Like he's only apologizing to Maurice, but it was like, Yeah, but you kind of forced this guy to hit his own wife and everything like that. When he'd be like, "That was not my intention."
Yeah, I did think that if he didn't play that up and up, where you would think you'd be like, "I'm so sorry," but instead he just sat there in this confusion hole, like when you used to watch, there's like that GIF from Clarissa Explains It All, where she's just like endlessly. You know what I'm talking about? That's like what Daniel Bryan looked like when he was in the ring.
I just people want to see Daniel Bryan wrestle. And I feel like, and I understand that there's other things that have to come along with pro wrestling other than the wrestling. But there's moments where it's just like, come on, don't make Daniel Bryan act concerned. Like, he hates Maurice. It's like, come on.
But also, you can't have your good guy out there acting like he's happy that he just had a woman get hit.
I mean, they did it in the Attitude Era.
Yeah, it's funny. I got tagged by someone who someone here in the office who doesn't still watch wrestling, but it was a clip of Stacy Keibler getting the stunner from Stone Cold Steve Austin back in the day.
Yeah, well, I don't. I was saying that tongue in cheek. I don't necessarily support the treatment of women as it happened in the Attitude Era.
Well, I mean, there is that argument for intergender wrestling. I mean, a lot of people are into it. A lot of people aren't into it.
Yeah.
I honestly see the arguments on both sides.
I don't think we're quite there yet. Like, in terms of there being more of a societal acceptance of it and everything like that, but that's just my take.
Is it believable for you?
What? Yeah.
Intergender wrestling?
Not every single person, But yeah, and I've long since said on our own show and everything that I think like the next humongous Andre the Giant versus Hulk Hogan style WrestleMania moment will probably like something of that magnitude. I can only see it being a man versus a woman at WrestleMania.
Interesting.
I don't think that that's going to happen in the next 10 years, but I do think that a lot can happen in 10 years. A lot has happened in 3 or 4 years in the WWE. So it is something I could see them getting to eventually. I mean, they did it in the past, obviously, with China. She was a rarity in that case, and they haven't really done it since then.
But it happens on the indies all the time.
For sure. I just think that there's, less of a magnifying glass on those indies.
Totally.
Even on Lucha, like whenever it happens, or whenever there's a moment like that. And so, I just think it's not quite there yet, but I do think that is something that's going to come one day, and I think that it's going to be huge when it does.
Interesting. So then we see that as Daniel's acting all, Clarissa explains it all. Maurice gives this look to the camera, look to Daniel, showing that she's evil, and this was all tricky. It was funny too.
I didn't like the camera angle though too, because the ref, I think it was the ref's shoulder, or the rope was kind of blocking Maurice's.
The rope was,
and I was just looking at it. I was like, I know she's making that face because I know wrestling well enough, but if somebody was just watching this, they might just be like, wait, why did she stand up? Because they wouldn't be able to see her face and be like, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah, my favorite part of watching this was my live viewing experience. I know I already mentioned Erica once here, but it cracked me up watching this because I was watching this with her, and as all was going, she was having the exact same reaction as you. She just kept saying, why would you trust her?
Yeah.
Don't trust Maurice.
Yeah.
She's evil.
Yeah.
Don't trust Maurice. Don't trust her. And then, of course, we see, it was all a trick. Miz comes running in, goes to hit him. Daniel Bryan outsmarts them, hits Miz. They leave.
I also thought, because I feel like Miz asked somebody for a bottle of water off to the side, and I was like, is he going to spit the water in his face? And did the bottle of water even come into play?
No, and I thought the same thing when he was doing that.
is he going to hit him in the head with a bottle of water? Because that looks like a soft, small bottle of water.
I just felt like in general, he could have hit him way sooner if you're setting that up. There were many opportunities where Daniel definitely appeared to be very open and able to hit from behind.
Also, I understand the importance and the impact of one's finisher, but hey, you can't do the skull-crushing finale when he's standing right over your wife. German suplex the guy.
Yeah, I felt the exact same way while watching it. I was like, this was not a well-thought-out plan to beat up Daniel Bryan.
No, and you know what? I think that sometimes, they must in the back just be like, okay, it's going to be one of those classic fake beatdown situations, and just wing it. You guys are pros. Just wing it. And I felt like it was a wing it opportunity that did not necessarily go as smoothly as it could. That having been said, obviously, I like the idea of of taking the women out of that equation now, since they've already been a part of it, and allowing the two of them to actually, you know, Miz and Daniel Bryan, to do some real work together. I think that adding that stipulation to the match definitely incentivizes watching and sitting through Super Showdown. And I don't mean to say that like it's a laborious process, but we know how long and exhausted these events can go, and we know how showy they can be too at the same time. So I do like there being actual stakes. I feel like there's you know, that it's great to build into that, because otherwise it kind of just feels like a lot of rematches shoehorned onto the card.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think that it lets Brie go back to Raw, deal with her Bella Twins Ronda thing, because they have to hype up that for Super Showdown anyways. So yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that it kind of moves us away from the you know, husband and wife storyline thing they've been doing, and lets us get back to the core of the wrestling, which is I think what people like SmackDown most for. Also, I should mention that I did see, I don't, before everyone like calls me out, I saw the interview Daniel Bryan did afterwards. Basically, Daniel Bryan said in the interview right after the segment that it was all a trick on his part too. That's why he was acting concerned for Maurice. But watching it was still confusing. Like, you didn't really get that.
You know, that's like making it a necessity to watch all like the post-credit sequences in a Marvel film. It's just like, hey, if you don't sit through those, you shouldn't be like held accountable for the information.
Well, it was a regular promo. It wasn't one that was on YouTube. It was
never mind.
It was on the show. It was part of the show.
I thought you said it was like something.
No. It was like the next segment after they came back from commercial. Daniel was like, I knew what they were doing. Like, I knew that they were setting me up. Like, that's why. It still looked a little.
Still weird. Feels very post-credits sequence to me. I knew it all along.
So then New Day, we see them. They're in Australian clothes. They got the safari clothes on. And they're doing. I loved this part where Big E gets called out for having the terrible Australian accent, and then. Or by Kofi Kingston, who then like gets a curious look from the rest of the group because of his former Jamaican accent days.
Yeah,
thought that was great. I always like when they pay off. You know, reward a longtime viewer who got that joke.
They love bringing that back up about Kofi.
They really do.
Yeah,
it's a classic moment when he finally got that switch over, and you're like, hey, what happened to your accent?
What happened?
So then next was Cesaro versus Kofi Kingston, and Cesaro, he focused most of the match on beating up Kofi's lower body, and ultimately picked up the win with the neutralizer. It wasn't a bad match by any means, but it also wasn't anything that I like. You know, you have to go out of your way to see.
No, you know, like sometimes there's those matches I feel like on Raw and on SmackDown, just so like they're clearly taking two people who are great, who have had great matches together, and just putting them back out there because they need to fill time.
Yep.
And obviously the you know, it serves a pseudo purpose as it's building obviously towards, you know, tag team match at some point in the future and everything. But yeah, I mean, it was nothing special. There's nothing awful, you know.
That's how I felt when I watched it. I was like, there's literally, I don't think there's a chance that you could put Kofi Kingston and Cesaro in the ring and they have a bad match.
No.
I mean, they are literally two of the most capable guys in the company that you can rely on to go out there, fill time, and entertainingly fill time. Yeah. So I liked it, but it wasn't. They didn't like, you know, they weren't given, you know, stage to go put on a 20-minute barn burner or anything like that.
You know, like at a certain point, you know, somebody, I'm trying to think of like the right people in terms of people who aren't passed away, but I was going to reference, you know, on WCW Saturday Night back in the day, they would fill up time and they would have people like Jericho versus Eddie Guerrero. You know, like, I mean, there would be matches like that took place on a regular basis. That would happen on Nitro and on Thunder as well.
There are a lot of those on Saturday night. I follow this playlist. I should call them out. I don't know. I get scared that I'm gonna like call that out, and then they're gonna get one of those notices, like a takedown thing, you know. But Monsoon Classic is my favorite YouTube channel. I watch it every night. I go on their YouTube channel, and they have all the old Saturday Nights, Thunder, all these like weird WCW shows that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
Same for WWF. And Saturday Night is always my favorite one to click on because there are so many random ass matches like that you'll be like, wait, those two people wrestled each other? Like, I'll see, if I recall, like once I saw like a Jushin Liger versus Ric Flair on there, like Macho Man versus.
You would see a lot of like
Brian Pillman or something like that.
You know, Saturday Night, I think, you know, WCW Saturday Night in a lot of ways, you know, it was their flagship show for the longest period of time in WCW. And then even whenever it wasn't, whenever Nitro came out and Thunder came out, there were still 2 hours that they had to fill, and I loved it. I loved it so much. And to that regard, you know, like I don't mean that as an insult to compare, you know, Kofi Kingston versus Cesaro as a WCW Saturday Night match.
No, but I as someone who watches WCW Saturday Night pretty much every night before bed, I completely understand what you're saying, because it really is like the work rate guys. Like a lot of times I watch like a Brian Pillman versus Scott Armstrong, and I'm like, well, not Scott Armstrong. Wait, what's the
Brian Armstrong.
Brian Armstrong, because he's on there a lot, and it's like Brian Armstrong versus like a Pillman or something like that, and they're like really good matches, and you go like, man, these guys were killing it out there, and you know, see, that's funny to me because I didn't realize. So when like I'm looking at this channel, I'm trying to pull up one of the most recent playlists they have of Saturday Night.
To be fair, too, WCW Saturday Night also had its fair share of The Gambler versus Roadblock and matches of that variety.
But to
be
honest with you, that's why I put it on before I go to
Yeah.
sleep, because it's like such like a weird mishmash of like all those things.
I do like that Roadblock would carry a literal roadblock to the ring with himself. Like that's living your gimmick right there.
Okay, so like here I am. Okay, so if I'm at Saturday Night in 1993, is Nitro on there?
No. Nitro didn't come on the air until 1995.
So this was their flagship show prior to Nitro.
WCW Saturday Night. That's why Dusty Rhodes was like, "It's a mothership, baby." You know, sorry, I do a really horrible Dusty Rhodes. But that's why it was their main show. It was their dominant show. In addition to that, they had like the WCW Pro, and I believe they had a couple other, you know, like obscure shows here and there. But Saturday Night was their main show, and they still would talk about it even up until his demise as like one of their most important shows.
Do you remember when Saturday Night went away finally?
No, I believe
that was like
Jimmy
near the end of WCW.
Yeah, it
right?
was close to the end, and I believe it was before. I can't recall specifically. There's part of me that feels like it went away at the end of 2000. Jimmy Hart, I believe, was the lead booker for it during its last few years. During its last year in particular, and I can recall watching it back in those days and thinking like, this feels like its own universe, kind of.
Totally.
And it was, because at that point, no primary stars were going to Saturday Night.
Yeah, when I watched the later years ones, it's interesting because it's like Nitro's happening and they've got like NWO guys on there, but it doesn't feel like you're watching like a part of canon. It feels like you're watching a Saturday morning show.
It was very, very, very rare. Like especially when the NWO came around. I remember on it they would do like those. The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order ads, but occasionally like an NWO guy would show up there.
So I pulled up just the most recent ones from '93, and you're like, just to give an example, because I think you're right here. You know, it's like Ricky Steamboat versus Barry Windham. Two Cold Scorpio versus Barry Windham. Dusty Rhodes versus Ricky Steamboat. Two Cold Scorpio and Brad Armstrong.
Dude, Two Cold Scorpio. I moved to Florida when I was young, and I remember when I was like 9 years old. It was 1992 at the time. And I remember talking, because when I moved to Florida, everybody was into WCW way more than WWF at the time. And I remember everybody in my elementary school class when I moved there, they all knew who Two Cold Scorpio was.
Really?
I'd never even heard of him before because I was a WWF diehard.
Yeah.
And had rarely ever even seen WCW. But it doesn't surprise me to see him on there, though, just because of all the ways that they talked about Two Cold Scorpio, Big Van Vader, Ron Simmons, etc. Like, they all knew who these people were. I had no clue.
When I watch Two Cold Scorpio on there, I say to myself, like, man, I know Two Cold Scorpio is a legend of the industry, and I know that he had a ton of success in wrestling. But when I watch those early like '90s WCW matches with Two Cold Scorpio, like at night, I watch them thinking like, how was this guy not the biggest wrestler on the planet at the time? Like, he was doing stuff that was just so revolutionary.
Well, that was the thing, is nobody else was doing stuff like him. Like, people like him either got held down or got treated, similar to like when you hear a legend even talking nowadays about like, oh, you got to slow things down and da-da-da-da-da. And it's just like, no, I mean, Two Cold Scorpio didn't subscribe to that belief. If anything, if he had been a wrestler of this era, he probably would have found a huge amount of success.
That's honestly what I think when I watch him. I go like, him and Brian Armstrong are the two. When I watch it, I go, man, like if these guys had come up in this era, they would be the biggest thing in wrestling.
And the problem is that even whenever Two Cold Scorpio got to WWF, it was kind of at the tail end of like that real bad gimmick era of WWF too.
Yeah, Flash Funk.
I had great hopes for Flash Funk because everybody had been churching up and talking about how great Two Cold Scorpio was, and then I saw him come around, and I was like, they are not letting this guy go like he can.
Okay, so next up is there was the Rusev Day backstage segment. Now, Rusev Day was a big part of this episode.
Yeah, it was a huge part.
Big part, yeah, big part. So it starts off with Rusev telling Aiden that he doesn't want him ringside for his match last night against Shinsuke Nakamura. Said because of his performance on Sunday. Rusev said if that was if that was your best performance, then it wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Then Lana and Rusev kind of walk out of frame, and Aiden English finally blows up at random backstage production person about how Rusev Day's success was all his, and that everything was Lana's fault. If anyone's fault, it was Lana's fault. He said he should have been more of a manager and less of a wife, and they turned around to find Lana behind him, who said she was going to go tell Rusev. He pleaded with her to not tell Rusev, and she storms off. So we're going to put a pin in that because I feel like once we get to the end of this, later in this episode, we'll have more to talk about with that segment, the payoff to that. But in the midst of that was a segment with Randy Orton. Randy Orton's in the production truck. This was a super weird segment, in my opinion. He's like creeping over this dude in the production truck, forcing him to pull up footage of him sticking the screwdriver through Jeff Hardy's ear and twisting it.
Yeah.
One, I like that. I think it's funny. I think it's funny. Jeff Hardy's, big spot at the end of Hell in a Cell was kind of like so weak looking, and they didn't go with that.
Yeah.
They went with.
Well, I mean,
Randy Orton sticking a screwdriver in a hole.
Well, I think that they realized, Randy Orton got off that table a little too quickly.
Very much so.
I mean, apparently Jeff Hardy's, got stalled vision. Maybe it's there's a buffering thing inside of his head.
Which one looked less cool to you? The Jeff Hardy spot or the Dolph Ziggler, Seth Rollins thing?
I think the Jeff Hardy spot.
Looks cooler to you?
No.
Looked worse to you?
Looked worse to me.
Interesting, okay.
I've seen Jeff Hardy do a lot of crazy stuff.
True.
I've seen him hang off of things and fall off of things and fall through things and fall down a lot. And I just feel like there's nothing really it's one thing to see, a Braun Strowman choke slam Kevin Owens or off the top of a cage or something along those lines, because I haven't necessarily seen that before. But just what Jeff Hardy was doing, I was kind of just meh, unimpressive. But the ear thing, though.
I think you watched it and just went, unimpressive.
Well,
I'm not making fun of you for it. I just picture you watching it and saying that right after having
well, it's one of those things where, when Jeff Hardy's going to be just and even he was talking up what he was going to do and
he was hyping it up.
And short of a swanton off the top of the cage onto a table, there's not really much that he could do that would be what you'd expect. So anything, it was almost like after Mick Foley, went off the top of the cell. And anytime that he didn't go off the top of the cell, he went off the side of it through a table. You're like, you can get up though. You gotten up from the top, so just get on up. And it's kind of the same thing with Jeff Hardy.
Come on, Micker, get up.
Yeah, come on, Micker. With Jeff Hardy, it's like him falling, from hanging on the cell through a table is basically akin to him spilling some milk on the floor and slipping on it.
I felt the same way. I'm wearing, for those of you who can't see, I'm wearing a Hardy Boys shirt today. I have to put it above the thing, but I was walking around with it. One of my coworkers said, oh, the Hardy Boys. I remember them. Did I see something online this weekend about Jeff Hardy getting injured from falling off a cage? And I had to be well, he's done crazier things on the cage. So I had to do one of those where I was that's not why he was actually. He's done crazier. So
no, but the ear spot though was
oddly enough, even though it was just putting a screwdriver in a hole, was oddly. Gross, much more gross, and a much more entertaining
spot. I have
to
tell you, there were moments when I was watching it where it was oh dear God, Jeff Hardy agreed to let his ear get ripped off. I was it happened to Mick. He's trying to catch up to Mick Foley right now.
We all thought that he was gonna jump off, he was gonna do a swanton off the cell. Instead, he was gonna rip a limb off.
In terms of Randy Orton watching it backstage in the truck or whatever, it's kind of one of those things where I'm hey, doesn't he have the network? Does he need to go to the truck?
You can literally, have it on your phone. I have the WWE Network on my phone. You can literally just pull it up very easily and quickly keep pushing that 10-second button too. You can just watch that on repeat on your phone very easily.
There's parts of me where I don't like them referencing too much that I understand it's a TV show. That these are TV shows. That's the way they're presented as SmackDown is a TV show, Raw is a TV show. But there's parts of me when they're just like, when they get into like the technical matters of how the show is made, not even like the decisions of like who's going to wrestle, but it's like, hey, there's a production truck backstage and all this is filmed and it's all edited and there's a director back there who's calling for different cameras and everything like that. I don't really like that, but in this situation, I didn't mind as much because I think that Randy Orton plays a great creep.
Well, it's funny. I feel, as someone who like has worked in television, when I see the production people, like the producers who are in the segments, and you're like, well, that guy clearly produced this segment. That's why he's in it for 1 second. But then, like, I think I want to say it was last night, New Day grabbed the production rundown sheet. And we're like kind of like waving it around. I took it from the production guy. Someone did that, and I had the same feeling. Like, oh, I don't like seeing it. I like feeling like this is like a spontaneous thing, even though I know I'm supposed to know that it's a television show. So I get what you're saying in that regard.
It's very like I'm trying to think. It's just like I don't know. It's just it breaks the fourth wall a little bit more than I prefer. But that having said, again, I think that Randy Orton plays a great creep, so I don't know. I didn't mind it as much in this case.
Well, so one thing he said in this segment, though, he said that all of this will pale in comparison to what he does to his next victim.
Yeah.
For some reason, in my notes, I have his newt victim, which doesn't make any sense.
My newt victim.
My newt victim.
No matter how lizardy he might be. Is a newt a lizard or an amphibian? I don't know.
They both work. I don't know. I think it's a lizard.
Yes.
So, but he clearly is setting up his next feud. But who do you think it's gonna be with? Who could you see? Because the whole thing that he's been trying to do is he's legend killing again, kind of almost, right? That was like kind of like the whole vibe here. But then I looked at the roster and there's not a lot of people that are like free to feud with Randy Orton right now.
I don't know. Like, that's a good question.
The only person I can think of that, like, if he's trying to get rid of people that you know of really well, I think that's what the whole thing with Jeff Hardy was. Maybe like a Shelton Benjamin who's kind of like waiting around for something to do. They've got history together. They both were in OVW together. No, they were. Now Shelton's back. He's not doing much.
It's hard sometimes with people like that. Like, I mean, I'd largely forgotten about Shelton Benjamin.
Yeah, they stopped using him a lot.
Yeah, like it's like, kind of similar to like Asuka, where I was just like, oh, right. She has a job with them.
Well, we're going to get to that, and I actually want to get your... Because you seem fired up about Asuka lately, so I do want to get your opinions on Asuka, and that's in a few segments, so we'll get to that, because I want to hear...
In terms of Randy Orton, though, I don't know. I think that this is a good opportunity for somebody to come after him.
Ooh, I like that.
And I think that that's what they should do, because like if you're struggling to think of somebody that Randy Orton could go after, they're probably struggling for somebody that he could go after, but the problem with that whole statement is that it's somebody he's going after.
That's my only problem with it, too, because if it's the other way, what I would do, even though they're both kind of heels, is Harper. Harper's got nothing to do. He's waiting, or he's got a cool music. He's got a cool gimmick. Just give him something to do and do Harper versus Randy Orton.
Yeah, I'd be down with that. I'm trying to think of somebody else, too, but it's just like I'm
telling you, I looked at the roster. It was not an easy pick for just...
Well, the only other things that I'm trying to do is just think of, like, well, what would be some good matches, at least, and... Unfortunately, there's part of me that feels like obviously that Orton could probably have some pretty killer matches with Styles and with Samoa Joe as well too, but they're wrapped up with each other. So I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah, no, I'm interested to see where that goes for that very reason. Now we see Rusev Day again. Rusev doesn't have time to hear Lana out. Asks Aiden to join him ringside. So then Rusev versus Nakamura happens. Not a bad match. I thought it was a good match. You like the match? Decent match?
Yeah, decent match.
It was. I think honestly, this whole episode was very similar to that WCW Saturday Night vibe that we were talking about. Where like they were good matches from strong workers that were not bad at all. I mean, and they got increasingly longer. Like I think AJ and Andrade went like 15 minutes. This one was like 10 minutes. Yeah. Or maybe even a little longer, like 12 minutes, something like that. So it wasn't bad. This is another one. I have a hard time believing that you put Nakamura and Rusev in a match and they're going to have a bad match. Yeah. This wasn't anything that that was mind-blowing or anything that you had to see.
It's hard whenever, when you have like the segments that they did that precede it to look at the match as just a match, to be able to expect anything to happen. Like, he knew something was going to happen. And that's the kind of the difficulty of it. He was like, even whenever I saw, like, you know, Nakamura, when he was like kind of pumping himself up over in the corner and everything, there was this part of me that was almost just like, you know, when he was doing that, it almost felt like a little forced. And it reminded me kind of just like when HBK would start tuning up the band way too soon, and you'd be like, Sean, come on. You're barely stomping your foot right now. I know you're not going to go for sweet chin music.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. And I think I was the same as you. I was just waiting for something to happen because, honestly, I've been so ready for the next stage of Rusev Day, wherever they're going with this, that I'm glad something finally happened, which happened after the match. You know, the match ends with Aiden distracting Rusev on the mic. He tells him to crush like Lana does. Rusev's all like confused because it's Lana who tells me to crush, which is like was a weird reason to get that confused.
Yeah. Also, I feel like Rusev should have given his wife the time of day prior to the match.
Yeah, very rude.
Hey, super rude.
Like, that's your wife.
You don't have time for your wife to tell you something important.
Like, she said she has something important to tell you. Just like take her aside, like, hey,
please, I need to tell you something. I don't have time for that. Like, I have to go wrestle.
There was a full like commercial break. You couldn't take time in that commercial break.
Do you think over the course of the commercial break he was like, what did I tell? Nope,
Lana, no
time.
No time. I need to talk about my intro with Aiden English.
We need to talk about this for 3 minutes.
So then Rusev loses, gets the, Nakamura rolls him up after the match. Standing there looking confused, turns around. Aiden hits him with the microphone from behind, beats him up, stands over him, says Happy Rusev Day, walks out. Finally get the breakup of Rusev Day. What'd you think about it?
I thought it was decently done. You know, like I'm glad that they're doing something with it too. You know, like the worst thing that could happen to Rusev Day is for it to grow old. Like, I mean, you know, I reference the yes chant as something that's just like, all right.
You tired of it?
Oh yeah, I've been tired of it for a long time.
How long?
Pretty much since Daniel Bryan was forced to retire from the ring.
Interesting.
I just feel like it was one of those things that people
it was like a moment
people like to do it. It was a movement. You know, like people were really into it at a certain point. But you get to a point to where people who are in the crowd are happy to chant along with it. But people watching at home are just like, I've seen this.
Like when Fandangoing went out of style kind of a thing, but like a little bit more important
or even
than that.
Like whenever, you know, not to continue to draw things back to WCW, but when they would bring Michael Buffer to Nitro every week, it was like, hey, him saying let's get ready to rumble might be fun for the crowd, but I'm switching back over to Raw the second that I see him start to do that announcement because I just don't care anymore.
Michael Buffer would make you switch the channel?
They did it every week. How many times can I hear him say that where it's just like, it's not like this is just normal now. He's no different than the Fink at a certain point because they have him there every week. So what's special about it? There's no attraction to Michael Buffer if he's saying, let's get ready to rumble every single time. And it's like, you know, the Giant versus Kevin Nash. I'm just like, no, that's not like this. Where's Karl Malone? You bring him out for Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman, but not for Kevin Nash and the Giant.
I just love how smarky you've been your whole life. That made you change there. Fuck Michael Buffer. Like...
Me and my brother hated Michael Buffer. We'd be like, this is classic WCW. They're so not creative. And then we'd switch over to Raw, and it's like, it's Naked Midian.
All right, so next was AJ Styles. Or actually, no, wait, I'm sorry. I don't want to surpass that because I want to say one more thing about this. I'm sorry. I forgot to mention one other thing. So with this Aiden English stuff, I saw X-Pac tweet about how he thinks there's a lot of upward mobility, I believe is the words he used for Aiden English, and that he saw a lot of potential in Aiden English, and he was happy with this split. And that's something that I don't know if I've personally ever, as much as like Aiden English, the person, whatever his real name is, seems like a nice guy, and as much as the character I've liked at certain points in time, I don't necessarily see a lot of upward mobility in terms of Vince ever. He looks a lot like Cesaro. Yeah. And Cesaro is by far a better wrestler. And no knock on Aiden English. They're both great wrestlers. Yeah. But I mean, like, Cesaro is a special talent. Yeah. And if anyone's going to get that push, I would think it would be Cesaro. Yeah. They look so, similar. Even though I will say that I think that Aiden English has way more charisma. Like, I wish you could somehow stationed them from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
The only way, like I actually, I agree with an asterisk in his upward mobility. One of the things that they drop the ball with on occasion, I don't want to say all the time because I can't name a billion times, but they'll kind of have them doing the same thing. They'll let them continue doing the same thing that got them over, even if it's detached from the direction that they're headed. When I was looking at a picture of Aiden English today, the dude's in great shape.
This is true.
And for some reason, he reminded me of Dennis Reynolds from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Okay.
A little bit. Just the way he's like, he popped the shirt off, you know, like, I mean, like. If
he had, like, hair, like, I could see that.
And there's part of me that, and maybe that was just my desire to be like, that'd be great if he played like a sadistic, you know, or a sociopath or something like that, where he wasn't, and maybe it wasn't so much to be like Dennis, but it was more just like, don't just keep doing the same thing that got you over right now, because now it's kind of detached, and I can see if they do it for a little bit. But I think in order for him to really have upward mobility, I think he's got to detach from the character that he's been, and he's got to become kind of his own person now too. That's the, you know.
So you think like stopping with the rap when he comes out?
How long can he do it? You know, because the thing is like it got over because it was like it was in support of Rusev,
and it was so ridiculous.
Yeah,
because in my opinion, I don't think his rapping was ever the part that was over. It was just chanting for Rusev Day.
For sure. Me too. I 100% agree with that.
Rusev Day was every day.
Because otherwise it's very similar, and you know, no diss intended to this, but you know, it's a very much the genius Lanny Poffo type of scenario where, you know, where he's doing something that jied, you know, kind of like, you know, elbows the crowd in the ribs a little bit, but it's not something that you can stay over with. There's no substance to it. It's too one-off gimmicky. And so I do hope that he, you know, in this split, and I obviously it'll take some time to distance himself from Rusev, but I do hope that he gets some distance and can be his own person rather than just an extension of what he was.
Because I know that Roke and I were kind of talking on here for the past few weeks about, you know, ways to kind of move forward with this, and we kind of had originally liked the idea of not Rusev, of Aiden English kind of going to other heels and glomming on them being their singer for a while. But I agree with you. That really only has so much shelf life.
Well, and the thing is that they're not going to do that right away. They're not going to do that till and the only way that they would do that too is if he goes through this feud with Rusev and comes out on the losing side of it too. That's the only way he's going to attach himself to other big stars.
Which he better come out the losing end of this. Rusev is by far the talent.
I
needs to move forward.
I could see. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, Rusev needs to be moving up the card, and I hate that he's been saddled in a tag team for as long as he has.
I'm shocked that he hasn't moved up the card more. I mean, it's like he's obviously amazing. He's hilarious. He's got Lana. I mean, like there's so many positives about Rusev.
Okay, so we're running out of time here, so let's move because you got to get back to work. But so we got AJ versus Andrade. I really don't think there's a lot to say because this is a great match.
Yeah.
It was a great match.
Yeah.
If you are going to go watch a match on SmackDown, this is the one to go watch. I don't know why you would only watch one match on SmackDown and then stop watching, but if that's your thing, this would be the one to do it. The ending was awesome though.
Yeah.
That crazy like Styles Clash thing where he like rolled. He got, you know, Andrade put him in the hammerlock DDT. He rolled. AJ rolled out of it and then rolled back up basically and had him in the Styles Clash. Super, super inventive.
Yeah.
I thought, just when you think you've seen him get people into the Styles Clash in every way imaginable, he does another one that you're just like, man, that was freaking cool.
Yeah. No, they've had some great matches together. I think it's time maybe to like separate them for a little bit because they have been kind of spending a lot of time with each other. And it's time to give Andrade something of more substance as well.
Yeah, I honestly think they need to give Andrade the U.S. title. I think that it will do more for him than it's currently doing for Nakamura.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, but at the same time, I like that. I feel like by Andrade being paired with guys like AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan, The Miz, it shows what WWE thinks about his skill and where he could stand in the future.
Yeah.
So I like that a lot. Then we go, so then we had the Iconics. They make fun of, you know, their weekly make fun of town segment. And then Billie Kay versus Asuka. Not much here. Ends in a few minutes. Asuka gets the win. But you have been in the group text very fired up about Asuka. So you're unhappy with where she's at.
I just don't like when like. And this is nothing new what I'm about to say here, but Asuka had so much momentum at the beginning of this year, and like, if you ask me what she's really done since she lost to Charlotte at WrestleMania, I'd be hard pressed to tell you a lot about it. Just because, not so much that she didn't, or that like that she didn't, that there's not a long list of feuds and different things, but it just feels like she was just so high up the card. And then now to see where she's at and everything, it's like, damn, are they just done with her? Like, are they just filling the space with Asuka right now? Because that feels like such a shame. She was such a killer, at the beginning of the year. And losing that match against Charlotte, now I'm not even opposed necessarily to the fact that she lost it, but everything they've done to follow up with her has just been to like turn her into like a WWE character and not just like her own badass too. So there's parts of me that just like, I don't like them just WWEing her.
Making her fun. She's like doing jokey things with Naomi.
Asuka's all about having fun. It's like, no, she's not. Like I don't need some like cookie cutter explanation for Asuka. It's like not only is she good at kicking butt, but she's also good at kicking back with her friends. It's just like no, I don't like that.
Well, I completely understand your point. I mean, I will say that I have been entertained by some of the things that she's been doing. Like I got a kick last week out of that segment that a lot of people seem to hate with a passion. People kept tweeting me calling it like a racist segment, the one where Asuka and Naomi were talking backstage, and she said like, you know what, you got the glow, girl. And she was like, glow? What's glow? And then she was like, glow, and then Asuka said glow in Japanese, and then it sounded kind of like the word teriyaki, and then she was like, teriyaki? You hungry? Like, I can get behind that. They had like a whole background. I was dying. I thought it was hilarious. It made me laugh. A lot of people seem to have the exact opposite reaction where they were like,
"Hey, I think
this."
I think it's just one of those reactions that people are grasping to that side of the reaction because they're just bummed at what they're doing with Asuka.
Yeah, I completely.
I don't think people.
I understand that completely. But what? Okay. At the same time, though, I feel like you can't be strong. The on top, strongest person forever like that. You know. And if they're giving her a little break. To like we had this years long winning streak or whatever it was a very long winning streak. I feel like let her have some fun, and then when she is like like we need her again, it's not like she can't turn it on and be that badass.
You're right about that because Becky Lynch was doing nothing for a chunk of time.
Which is a great segue into the segment that came after that, which is the coronation ceremony. And I'm interested because I think it directly goes into what you were saying here, where you were going to talk about here, is that, this whole thing was definitely designed to try to make Becky Lynch look like a bitch, right?
Yeah.
Like this was...
Hey, it's not working, though.
Man, you know what the problem is, though? And I know that I seem to always be on the opposite side here, but and maybe I like the storyline or something. I don't know what it is, and I'm just.
I don't mind the storyline at this point.
It did work. Like that's why I was kind of confused.
Well, I think
I honestly felt like, there's some people who boo Roman Reigns and who booed John Cena just because they saw it done on TV before. Don't dislike him. Probably enjoy his matches. Have said things about him.
Yeah.
But you boo him because of what everyone else is doing.
You suck when Kurt Angle's coming out.
Exactly. I honestly feel like that's what's going on here because, like, I was, like, watching and thinking, like, she was literally trying to make her best friend. She was trying to embarrass Charlotte.
Yeah.
You can't be behind that. Like, even Stone Cold Anti-Hero, I don't think, was, like, doing that to other good guys.
Yeah.
And I know that some people don't view Charlotte as a good guy, which is, I think, the disconnect between me and others because I don't look at Charlotte and go, oh, she's had everything handed to her. Like, fuck Charlotte. Like, she's just there because she's Ric Flair's daughter. Like, she's good wrestler. Like, she botches the moonsault, but everything else she's good at. Like, so yeah, I don't know.
I think that, when it comes to somebody like Charlotte Flair, I can understand why people don't want to cheer her as much too. And I kind of honestly look at it like Ric Flair. People might cheer Ric Flair right now, and they might have really enjoyed Ric Flair a lot, but Ric Flair was a heel almost the entire time, almost his entire career, up until pretty much, he split from Evolution and various chunks in WCW and stuff like that. But he was a heel and he played it well and everything like that. And and Charlotte's, not like her dad in many ways. Charlotte is well, maybe she's a lot like him. I was gonna say, like, Charlotte doesn't rely on like the same, moves that Ric Flair did, and didn't go into some of the same patterns that Ric Flair did, but she kind of does though too. And so I think that there's a want of people to view her as as a heel.
Because of her connection to Ric Flair.
Yeah, a little bit, and also because she's great. She is better as a heel. She's a phenomenal athlete. She's big too.
You know what my problem is that I do, because I'm always on social media, I do look at her and think like she's a good role model. Like, like she was in a place in her life where maybe, she was kind of just like going day by day and a bad thing happened to her. Like she dealt with a horrible loss and it made her change everything in her life. And now she's like someone that you can look up to, like she is, like everyone has their stumbles along the way. Everyone has, like things, but I do think that she is someone that young girls can look up to.
Yeah.
And Ric Flair was not that for guys. People loved Ric Flair. Ric Flair was, a great wrestler, but he was nobody's no one's role model. He was maybe idol, but never a role model.
He's still not.
Exactly.
Do not kiss your wife the way that Ric Flair did at his own wedding, at his most recent wedding. Maybe do it behind closed doors like that, but not when, every single news outlet is going to catch it and share it, and then it becomes a meme.
But I do understand what you're saying about that. I think it's maybe just me. I look at her. I wouldn't mind my daughter looking up to her.
At this point, though, like I kind of agree with you. It's like I think that I was literally thought about you last night while I was watching it because I was like, yeah, Ryan was right. It is one of those things where it's like, give it some time to let them see where they're going with it. A lot of people in this day and age complain about wrestling because they're like, oh, everything is just so forced. It happens so quickly and everything like that. And yet here's a situation where it's not happening quickly, where it's slowly unfolding and everybody's complaining about how that it's not going the way they immediately want it to and everything. Stone Cold Steve Austin didn't happen overnight. Stone Cold Steve Austin happened slowly. Even after he said, gave the Austin 3:16 speech at King of the Ring 1996, he didn't become a full-fledged, quote unquote, good guy, anti-hero until about a year later, actually, too. Even as, when they say like, oh, when, Brett and Stone Cold changed places at WrestleMania 13, I understand that that's the revisionist history of it, but if you go back and watch a lot of those episodes of Raw that took place around then and right after then, it wasn't like Stone Cold was just a great, some immediate good guy. And even there was a lot of periods of time where he wasn't just an immediate good guy. He wasn't a good guy. He was just beloved and everything. So I think that it's playing out the way that they want it to with Becky. I think it is going the direction that they want, because at the end of the day, the crowd is going to cheer who they want to and everything like that. No amount of shoehorning of a storyline or of a perceived attitude or outlook of the characters and everything like that is going to change the public's mind. They're choosing Becky Lynch in this case, and that doesn't mean necessarily that she's going to just be a good guy because of it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Even Cody Rhodes talking on Twitter last night about how, he doesn't believe that there's good guys or bad guys in wrestling anymore, that, it's the job of the wrestler to have a well-developed character, basically, that will make the crowd react and react in a big way or react in the way that you want. But that, the heel or face thing is more defined by the person because people identify with different things as being bad or good.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where I am with the Charlotte situation, where it's like, I think I identify with certain things there because like my brother passed and then it changed things in me. It made me want to go for something that I cared about. So I think when I look at Charlotte, I go like, oh, good person. But then other people go like, oh, Ric Flair's daughter handed everything, like given multiple title reigns. They had her win every pay-per-view for fucking 2 years. So I mean, I also understand that as well. That's just me, but I get the whole heel face. Yeah. I get what you were just saying.
I think Becky's doing great.
I think she's doing great too. I really enjoyed this segment.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think she's carrying the ball right now.
Me too.
Big time. I was majorly impressed by her last night.
I mean, she just looked so much more confident when she came out with the title, when she was telling Charlotte oh no, I actually want you to put the belt around my waist. Actually, no, I want you to call me queen. Because honestly, the queen one was the first time where I was like, this whole time I've been like, well, but Becky is beating up her friend, and Charlotte never did anything to her. And that queen line was the first time where I thought to myself on the other side finally, and I said to myself, if my best friend was always calling himself the king and we were in the same profession, it would probably piss me the fuck off too.
Yeah.
Where I'd be like, fuck you. Like, I'm the fucking king.
You'd hate to work with me, by the way. Because everybody at my work calls me King Bates.
King Bates. Yeah, well, speaking of you getting back to work, I'm going to let you get back to work here. Because I know we're pressed for time, but where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter, @Elijah Bates. You can find me on Instagram, @Brindlebeer.
And you can also find him every week on Wrestling Sheet Radio with me and Jamie Ivey, and I'm pointing like he's there, but he's not. We're on Wrestling Sheet Radio every week. It's Friday on the podcast feed, Friday on the YouTube channel. You can see the video or the audio, whatever you'd like. I'm at Ryan Satin on social media. It's ProWrestlingSheet.com, @WrestlingSheet on social media if you want to follow the website. Like I said, there's a YouTube channel, youtube.com/C/Wrestling Sheet. If you're watching this, this isn't directed to you, obviously. But if you're not, if you're listening to this, go to the YouTube channel. A bunch of content on there. News updates, lists, recap shows. Normally it's Roke and myself, but you got Elijah this week. And if you're watching this, you're watching the YouTube channel, on the audio side of things, on the Wrestling Sheet radio feed, there are shows available that aren't here. There's Top 5 with James and our former co-host Kevin Silva. There's also Best of the Rest, where they talk about different indie promotions and things of that nature. So please go there, subscribe, leave a rating, leave a review. It helps very, very much. Okay, that's it. We're done. Officially tapping out for now. Until next time, stay out of the dirt and keep your eye on the sheet.
ProWrestlingSheet.com